Welcome to the Social Gravity Podcast. This is the official reboot episode of the series. We haven't done it in actually quite a long time. And today I have a very good friend of mine, Cayden Gibb, with me. What's going on, man?
Not much, man. Excited to be here. We got the new studio for the podcast. It is looking prime, if I
Yeah,
may say.
I kind of think so too.
Yeah.
It's pretty good.
We came back and took it up a whole nother level.
Yeah, absolutely. So if you're new to the show, my name is Vic. I'm the founder here at Social Gravity. We basically help entrepreneurs create freedom in their business and in their life. And this show is all about talking to entrepreneurs, content creators, overall dope people. Luckily, Cayden is basically all three of those packed into one human.
Yeah, exactly.
So what's been going on? How has the world been without us? What's been going on?
Well, I know before we started today, we were talking before about the big thing that's on everyone's mind in the world, and that is the crypto crash.
Yes. Crypto.
More of a dip, more of a slight dip.
More of like the Elon kind of crash. Elon
Yeah.
was the richest man in the world.
Yeah.
No, not anymore.
Do you think that those guys care though, to be like to say I'm number one, number two? Because I remember when Elon actually crossed the threshold and like was the quote unquote number one dude, he like tweeted something to the effect of like, "Oh, cool, back to work." Like it was so nonchalant.
I feel like Elon is the type of guy that's like, I don't understand why I am. I'm just an engineer.
Yeah,
Like
literally.
that's kind of like how he functions and talks.
I definitely think Bezos cares way more. Like I feel like when he like crosses to number one, he just gets that thrill.
Yeah. Well, no, what's really interesting is the day after Bezos wasn't the richest man in the world anymore, they announced he's stepping down as CEO of Amazon.
Yeah.
So definitely, I think Bezos' ego got hurt way more than Elon's ego, in my opinion.
Why do you think Bezos? I haven't really looked into it a lot, but why do you think he stepped down? Have you done any research into that?
Well, I mean, Amazon is about 22, 23 years old. I think it's about that age, and he's been running it since the day it opened. So, I mean, it's probably at the point where
It's like done.
yeah, he's probably just like, all right, I want to take a board position and just kind of make some decisions. I'm kind of sick of the weeds at this point. I feel like that's what Bezos' mentality is.
I wonder if he maybe like the hate gets to him. I wonder how much he cares about that because he definitely gets, not to get political, but he's like the first person that a lot of like socialist type people reference where they're like, Bezos has this much money, like you could work this many hours and never come close, right?
Oh yeah, there's no way to ever really, you could never catch up to Bezos on an hourly wage if you lived 1,000 lifetimes.
He's only 57. Like,
yeah, but that's 55 is usually, well, no, sorry, 65 is usually like the retirement age.
yeah, but these guys are in different scenarios.
I mean, if you're the richest man in the world, like knock it down in like 10 years, in my opinion.
Yeah, I just think that a lot of these guys, like the Elons and the Bezos, like they're not at a point, you're not doing it for the money anymore, right?
Mhm.
Like this is purely a advancement of human society, right?
Mhm.
And like even Bezos, like I think that he cares a lot about things in terms of like you've seen with him with drones and how Amazon's delivering things, and there's a lot of stuff that we don't know that they're working on, right?
Yeah.
So I don't feel like I think it might maybe be more that he probably feels he's in the spotlight a lot. A lot of these guys when they start, they don't do it to get famous, right?
Mhm.
They're doing it to like start a company to change things, right? But then once it becomes uber successful like that, not referencing Uber, but when it becomes that successful, you there's this fame that comes along with it as well, right?
Yeah, like entrepreneurs are kind of the new rock stars. Like
Yeah.
Elon is like the equivalent of a rock star
Yeah.
from back in the 80s.
Now, wasn't Elon recently saying some negative things about Bitcoin? Did you see that?
He said that Bitcoin seems overvalued or
Yeah.
Bitcoin seems high, LOL is what he
So,
said.
do you think that there's some games going on there in the sense of that it was Tesla or what it was one of his companies purchased like
Yeah.
$1.5 billion?
Yeah, so Tesla purchased 1.5 billion in crypto last week, which made the price surge past I think 60K or
Yeah.
something Canadian, which was amazing for
Yeah.
us. But and then yeah, it's so weird that he comes out and he says, Bitcoin seems high. It's almost like self-sabotage.
Now, I just wondered, I could be wrong, but is there any point where he's like saying things to make the price dip to then go back and purchase again?
Yeah, I think there could be some of that. Then there's also the side of Elon where he just like
Yeah,
doesn't really
care.
care.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's once you get to that level of wealth, like the trolling is probably what gives him life again. Like seeing $1 million go into his like savings doesn't do it for him. It's like way more fun, I'm sure, to be like, Bitcoin seems a bit high, and then watch everyone lose their mind.
Well, the really interesting thing about Elon and a lot of these billionaires is I know Elon in particular basically has no other holdings other than his equity in Tesla,
Yeah.
SpaceX, and what etc. And he actually has no cash. So his wealth is entirely built on the valuations of these companies. And like people at that level, all they do for like, so you're probably thinking like, okay, he has no cash. How does he live?
Yeah.
So what they do is they stake their equity, stake their shares, and then they live off line of credits.
Yeah.
That's how a lot of these billionaires actually function because they don't want to sell their shares.
Yeah, I do think that the mainstream idea of some of these top 0.001% people and how their money comes to them and how much they're worth, I think that a lot of people have this idea that like like whatever Bezos' net worth is just sitting in his checking, right? Like,
yeah, it's
not
definitely
really,
not.
yeah.
It's such a different system for them.
It'd be really funny though to see one of these guys like Elon would be the most likely to do this, but to be like, I'm gonna sell everything. Give me it all. Like, give me every like, dollar.
I'm cashing out.
Worth. Yeah.
I'm cashing out.
And just watch like the currency system like freak out. The like Federal Reserve is like, what?
Well, that would actually like. Well, think of the repercussions of Elon selling all of his Tesla stock. Like his brother sold like 20% of what he held a couple weeks ago, and the internet was like, "Oh my god." Imagine Elon selling any of it. It's just gonna be not okay.
Yeah, but I'm just saying, like, if there was a guy that would do that, like,
it would be him.
I feel like just on his way out, like, when he's like 70 something, just to
cash out.
Peace. Yeah,
it could be. Let me know what you think about this. I've been seeing these everywhere. Kind of trying to wrap my head around it. NFTs.
Yeah.
So we didn't really talk too much about little talk about crypto right now, but NFTs, these crypto digital assets that people are buying and trading for Ethereum most commonly.
Okay. Yeah.
And they come in the shapes of images, digital paintings, digital real estate, digital trading cards, game skins, things like that. Where do you see this going?
Well, in a way, this isn't a new thing, right? So we've seen this in the video game world, right? Like I'm familiar with a lot of sports games. So there's been with like you can buy sports packs, cards,
like
right?
FIFA. There's like a whole world of FIFA people on YouTube, and they just open FIFA sports packs all day
and spending like serious amounts of cash potentially to be getting these virtual cards.
Yeah.
And personally, I've never gone into that. Never saw the value in it, was never interested in it. But now we're seeing again this kind of explosion of not just cards, but maybe pieces of art, or I don't have like avatars, different like characters.
There's what we were talking about earlier. These crypto punks.
Yeah.
Now Logan Paul has his own virtual Pokemon card that's trading in these markets too, and it seems right now like not a lot of people know what NFTs are.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of speculative, I can get rich off of this type overnight. It seems like one of those things.
I just say we're in V1 stage, version 1 of this, in the sense of, okay, in 20 years from now, when we look at the macro of like, okay, virtual reality is very much the future, right? And we're going to be having kind of our own virtual lives, so to say, right? Imagine The Sims kind of, right?
Right.
And there might be this future where, okay, you're going to go into your virtual world and you have a house there and you got to fill your house up with furniture, artwork, appliances, just like you would in the quote unquote physical world.
Right.
Well, you're going to have to pay for those potentially, right? So I feel like this is just the start of that, but we don't necessarily have the technology to really like back it, to give it that true value.
Yeah.
Right now it's hype.
Yeah, we're not. So for you to utilize it in your virtual world, we would have to have like a kind of a centralized mainstream sort of virtual platform that everyone goes into. And kind of your vision for these NFTs is that the same way we're adapting cryptocurrency and we're using it now in our day-to-day, because like when Bitcoin started, no one used it.
Yeah.
It was really hard to buy. You used it to buy drugs on Silk Road, essentially.
Yeah.
Or there's some story of a guy spending 10,000 Bitcoin on a pizza. Things like this, you know?
Yeah.
Maybe in 10, 15 years when virtual reality is really integrated and we have some sort of mainstream platform, these NFTs, this system of trading NFTs could potentially be like going to Walmart, but for your virtual store.
Yeah, exactly. I think
virtual world.
currently right now, the only reason people potentially are buying these is purely for a profit standpoint.
Mm-hmm.
There's no gain in the immediate of having these cards or whatever. Even buying cards in the physical world, like it's cool for a second to hold them, but like again, for majority, I feel like of people who collect cards, it's for a monetary gain later, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, because investing in general has become mainstream, like very mainstream.
Yeah.
With Robinhood in Canada, we have Wealthsimple. And now kids, my 14-year-old cousin called me the other night and was asking me what stocks I'm investing in. He doesn't have a job. He's never worked a job.
Yeah.
And I told him, I'm like, I think you have to learn how to walk before you can skate.
Yeah.
So read some, Richest Man in Babylon. There's lots of fantastic financial literature books you should be reading, but investing is something that you do with your disposable income. You, my friend, don't have an income.
Yeah.
So
That's so funny. I just imagine your like 14-year-old cousin is like, what should my crypto portfolio be percentage wise? Like Bitcoin to Ethereum. And it's like,
knows more than me. Like so much more advanced.
It's like, how much do you have to invest? It's like, well, grandma gave me 100 for Christmas. So,
but that's kind of like in his mind.
It's so dope though for him. That's awesome.
No, it's very, very cool. And it's so cool to see that this financial literacy is becoming popular. It's becoming cool because this is what we need. In the youth, because the youth actually, when you go to school, majority of them, unless you're in some private school, they don't have a class called money. They don't have a class called investing. They don't allow you to learn this stuff. So for him to even be interested in it, it's very cool. Kudos to him. At the same time, you have to build a foundation before you can build the house. And that's kind of like what I wanted to tell him, essentially.
Exactly. No, it's good advice, but I wanted to, you brought up one thing that we actually haven't discussed, but I'd be interested to talk about is the Robinhood app.
Okay.
And everything that happened with GameStop.
Yeah. So everyone knows it. I don't think anyone needs background on this.
Anyone who watches this podcast is aware.
Because you're on YouTube, right? Because you just been feeding us. But with Robinhood in particular, I read somewhere that Robinhood shutting down and closing the trading for GameStop and other brokerages had to do it too. By halting trading on GameStop, they potentially saved these hedge fund investors like almost like 100 billion in losses, because the projections is that short squeeze, instead of going to a couple hundred as it would have went to over 1,000 if GameStop was not halted.
Yeah, it's pretty messed up though when you think about it.
Yeah.
I was looking at so Dave Portnoy, you know him. He was talking on Twitter. He's talking a lot on different news programs and saying like these people at Robinhood, like the board members, CEOs, like should be in prison. Like very adamant about this is straight up illegal. And I don't know what I don't know currently what the update on that situation is.
So this is what I guess this is their side of it. I'll give a brief explanation. I've looked into this quite a bit. So essentially, Robinhood uses a third-party trader to actually initiate the trades and move the money and get the asset. I think it's called Citadel, I believe. Don't quote me on that. So at the peak of this trading frenzy, Citadel, I believe, reached out to Robinhood and said, in order for us to push these trades through, we need kind of what's the word I'm looking for? A type of capital that just in case this goes wrong, we can use it as backup. They needed $3 billion right now, or we're not moving forward with these trades.
Yeah.
So apparently this happened at like 3 a.m. So Robinhood actually raised that money within the next few hours somehow.
Yeah.
And then they gave it to them, and then they restored trading. But I guess in that time frame, trading got torn offline. So that's the story that Robinhood is telling everyone.
Yeah, like obviously I don't know who necessarily is in the right here, but I do know that it looks a little fishy from the outside, and people
Mhm.
who aren't going to do the research, I could see how they're just like, this is messed.
Yeah.
But we're seeing though a second resurgence in GameStop stock. So I'm looking right now, we're at 152 USD. This morning when I checked, it was at like 112.
Yeah, and I know just the past couple of days it's been as low as 50 is where it dropped to, because I was checking, because Wealthsimple got GameStop now. So if we
Yeah,
wanted to get into it,
I looked into it. But I don't think that this second wave here is going to last nearly as long as the first.
I think this is more of a potential group of investors seeing the long-term benefits, because there was a lot of math done and a lot of observation, and a lot of really good points were made on the GameStop side, saying, this is actually an establishment that if they try to take things into e-commerce, there's going to be a lot of upside, because GameStop still sells physical discs,
Yeah.
and physical discs in gaming are still the norm.
Yeah.
They haven't transitioned like music. Music has transitioned entirely to digital.
Yeah.
Physical discs are obsolete.
Yep.
Because with music, the physical disc could be replicated
Yeah.
and stolen. But with a game, you can't burn a game.
Yeah.
You used to be able to burn games on PlayStation 2, and you'd have to have this big mod thing on the back or whatever, or have to do some weird trick with, I remember I had this like weird piece of metal that I would like stick in my disc tray, and like, so you could mod games on past devices. You can't do that anymore. So the physical disc game still is prominent and just winning in the gaming space. So that's why they're saying, GameStop still has a shot. If it was all digital, maybe not. But
yeah, I just think as an investor, I'm not a fan of the short-term risks in that way. I like to think long-term in these things. Like at the end of the day, you're gambling. Like go to the casino, right, and put some on blackjack at this point, right? Like you are gambling. Now you can do a lot of research and have a very educated guess, but at the end of the day, you don't know. But like even things like we talk about Bitcoin, I see the future potential in cryptocurrency. I don't know if it's going to be Bitcoin exactly or what, but I do know 20 years from now or whatever that number is, the way that money works today is going to be drastically different, right? And this seems like the first iteration of that, and that's something that to me is worth more to invest in than a GameStop stock.
Yes, absolutely, because GameStop stock is a meme,
The meme
stock, right? Like I even got burned this week from being on Wall Street Bets and starting to pay attention to the CCIV, who planned on merging with Lucid Motors, and this is a Tesla competitor company. And so I literally bought into the hype, and I bought in at the wrong time, and they merged, but the merger backfired apparently. So my lesson here is that I need to not be part of these speculative waves of retail investors, because it's actually kind of dangerous, really.
If you're listening and you're not the biggest investor per se, and you're just getting into this, you and some other of our friends recommended that I watch The Big Short, that movie. Such a good
it's fantastic.
It just came to me as we were talking about like investing and all that.
Yeah.
And like that whole scene is just there's just a whole nother world of finance that I don't like. We talked about this earlier, how our definitions of mainstream are a little different in a way.
Right.
Like my definition of mainstream is like, is my grandmother aware of this?
Yeah.
Right.
And like my definition of mainstream is like, do my friends know, or are my friends thinking the same way I am? Because I'm trying to even be ahead of my friends.
Like for me, GameStop stock went mainstream because I had family members asking me, "What have you heard about this?" Right. But there's still, because I think people have that FOMO, right? Of like, oh, everyone's in Bitcoin, everyone's in this. I'm like, reality, ask like 10 people, random people, 9 of them probably aren't crypto investors at this point.
I think mainstream is like the news too. Like we saw GameStop all over the news. We are seeing Bitcoin all over the news. Those are, even Doge broke mainstream, I would say. But
once Elon tweets about it, it's pretty much.
Yeah, because Elon is kind of like, right now, he's like the voice of the people. at this point.
He is the Robin Hood.
He's kind of Robin Hood. Yeah.
Yeah, man.
But when it comes to crypto, when it comes to Bitcoin, we're going to see this crazy future. It's almost like this new internet.
Yeah.
That's emerging.
And even the security of it all, right? It's interesting how there was that one guy who had all of his Bitcoin that he bought like 10 years ago on this like wallet, quote unquote. Yeah. And remember you telling me that he doesn't have, I always assumed that he had like one word passcode, right? It was like the name of your cat or whatever he had, but it's like a 24 word like phrase.
So this guy has 10 chances with his hard wallet to get the password right. Yeah. And then it's the keys are lost. So the crypto's gone if he gets them all wrong. Everyone's saying it as it's a password, like a password to log into your email. Yeah. It's not. It is a passphrase. So this is a 18 or 24 word sentence that's basically of random words. And you have to have it in order, spelled properly. And you basically have to write this down and keep it somewhere or else it's gone. It's done.
Oh man, I want to just take that guy out for like an ice cream and just pat him on the back. I just feel so bad.
That's terrible. That's terrible.
But even it's interesting though, because we're getting into this world of NFTs and crypto, all these virtual assets that, okay, how do we protect these things, right? Because how do we protect our assets now? We have a house that has locks on it, or we have banks that hold this for us. But like, I remember you even explained to me about how to secure my Bitcoin, right? And putting on a wallet and all these things. And to be honest, that was really confusing at first, even the concept and all that. I'm just like, it didn't make sense at first. And I feel like the biggest problem with crypto is there's still so many people that don't fully understand it. Right?
Well, it's honestly such a complex thing. Like I personally only understand the surface because for me to understand more, I would have to be like a data scientist or a mathematician to understand how it actually functions and creates the hashings and creates the keys and even read the ledger. So what you're talking about is how do we keep our crypto secure? And you gotta understand crypto is literally you have a public key that anyone can see on the ledger to know the transaction happened. And you have a private key, which gives you access to the funds within that public key. So the public key is kind of your wallet. A wallet is just like a wallet that you have, like a one with money in it or your cards in it. But you have different types of wallets. So you have like a soft wallet. A soft wallet's like one that I have installed on my computer, and on my computer it holds my codes. I have what's called a hot wallet. So a hot wallet is actually an online one. So it's on an online website. My keys are stored on someone's website. That's the most dangerous thing you can have. And then there's a hard wallet. And a hard wallet or a cold wallet. So there's hot wallets, cold wallets. Cold wallet or hard wallet is what you want. And you want this because it is offline entirely. So it can never get hacked. The biggest security issue for crypto is getting hacked. Yeah. The only way to get hacked if you have a hard wallet is to actually give someone your passphrase, that passphrase, and then they can access because they have your public key. If you do that, you're dumb. You probably didn't deserve to have crypto anyway. So don't give anyone your passphrase.
So because I think the majority of people, maybe I'm wrong, I shouldn't say the majority, but there's a lot of people that use mainstream apps like Wealthsimple, Robinhood. How does the protection work in that sense? Like what would that be called? Like how does that work?
So they have their own security to hold that stuff within their own application. Okay. So when you buy on Wealthsimple, say you buy Bitcoin on Wealthsimple, you are trusting that Wealthsimple won't get hacked. Yeah. If Wealthsimple got hacked, your funds are at risk. Yeah. So there is still a risk. Now Wealthsimple is really, really reputable. Yeah. Robinhood is also really, really reputable. Yeah. So there's less of a risk there, but you are still posing a risk if they had a data breach, because then your keys are exposed. Now, if you have a hard wallet like a Ledger, now Ledger will stay offline entirely, and it's basically it looks like a USB stick, but it's a computer. Okay, it's a stripped down computer, and that holds all it does is hold your codes, your key to your crypto. That's all it's for. Huh. So you literally need it, and then you need your passphrase in order to log in to your wallet and
Yeah.
access it to move it around.
Yeah, I think we're gonna come into an age now, and I don't think our legal system is ready for the amount of cyber theft and activity that's gonna go on. Like we don't like what are the I know there are laws obviously, but we're gonna get into a time where we're really gonna have to redefine how some of this stuff works, right?
Yeah, cybersecurity is something that I started paying attention to very much when I got into crypto. So when the virus came and everything crashed, that's when I bought my crypto. I just had this foresight that it would go up, and I was right on that. But I also then had a lot of like stress dreams that I would get hacked because back at the last big crypto spike in 2017, I bought like $100 worth of Litecoin. Okay. And I kept it on this exchange. I didn't really know how wallets worked at the time. And that exchange got hacked.
Yeah.
And everything from that exchange was stolen.
Yeah.
So I learned
That's the way to learn. Yeah.
Yeah. You know, if you're holding crypto, you better keep it safe. You better keep it offline, because hacks on exchanges and wallets happen all the time. All the time. And it's really hard to trust these companies with your assets. These are real assets, right?
Yeah, it's interesting for sure. Should we talk about how you can hack the TikTok algorithm now, or what?
So
in the back of my head,
I think okay, so let's jump on the difference between TikTok organic versus TikTok ads, because this is a very new emerging thing that a lot of advertisers and marketers, they don't really know it's there.
Yeah.
Now, last week I ran a test campaign. I put $300 into TikTok ads. I'm like, let's see what happens. My findings are that the cost per 1,000 users, extremely low. My cost per click was below 8 cents, which is very, very cheap. And I was running a business to business campaign, which is not really typical of what you'd think on TikTok.
At least you would think, right? Because again, I still think there's a lot of potential advertisers who don't want to touch TikTok because they have this wrong reputation of it. It's like, oh, it's just for the 16-year-old girl who wants to do lip sync dances and all that. And it's like, when you actually look at the data behind it, the user base is growing and higher than ever.
And also, it's going to grow in ratio too. Like, there are older demographics on TikTok, and there are also like almost business niche channels on TikTok giving business advice, and it's really cool. It's like very cool, but there's still that market there, and people don't really take that seriously.
Yeah, I still think for most people, they're still at ground zero in the sense of, okay, let's start being a creator and not a consumer. Let's start posting consistently before we start running ads on this stuff. Because with, again, how TikTok is, I think, really gaining a lot of its creators is the idea of, okay, I can blow up without going the regular route of like the hashtag world, the automation of unfollow, follow. TikTok is going to promote me if I make good stuff.
Right.
If you're consistent and you're putting out good content, you're going to grow. It just will happen.
And then on the flip side, if you wanted that push, that reach, the ads platform on TikTok is so cheap.
Yeah.
And with such crazy reach, that $300 reached over 160,000 people.
Yeah.
Like on Facebook, that wouldn't happen at this point.
Yeah.
My Facebook CPMs are much, much, much higher, multiples higher. And it's making me really consider, you know, I feel like Facebook is very, very competitive right now.
Yeah.
A lot of things happening. Their battle with Apple and that whole iOS update. Are you familiar with the iOS update? So the iOS update with Apple essentially made it so Apple are removing cookies out of their browser, out of their Facebook experience, and it's making it so it's very difficult for these platforms to now track your behavior.
For privacy reasons?
That is for privacy reasons.
That's surprising.
Yeah, and I mean, for me, it seems like a bad move because you're turning these massive corporations off of you.
Yeah.
Now, on the flip side, what I see happening is I think Apple in the next year or 2 years is going to roll out their own ads platform that only accesses Apple devices. Maybe I'm wrong, But wouldn't that be the perfect first move to kill your competitors, or at least put a dagger in your competitors if you're moving into a new space?
Yeah, my first thought with all that is that it almost it just scares me how we're having so many companies and corporations having such a stronghold over markets, right? Like we're seeing how Facebook and Instagram will just steal any new idea and just add it and destroy you. Like it's becoming too big for its own good.
Like there has to be something illegal in Zuck seeing something work and then just going and ripping it off, like with Snapchat, with Reels. Like
So, have you seen
it's
that
messed up.
Clubhouse? We haven't talked about Clubhouse. This is our first episode, so we haven't
Yeah.
talked
Next
about.
episode we will talk
But
about.
the Clubhouse app, very voice platform, all voice platform. Twitter now has their own version, and
Mm.
Instagram is developing it right now,
Mm.
right? To have their own, like it's just so immediate. So any new company that has a cool app idea or whatever, it's like how do you avoid getting just immediately destroyed
Yeah, you
by the
can't.
big brother,
You
Bigfoot?
can't.
Gone.
And Amazon's doing the same thing. Amazon, I was on Amazon AWS yesterday. Now AWS is a monster in itself, but AWS now has like an email marketing, SMS marketing thing called Pinpoint.
Okay.
So now they're rivaling Mailchimp and everyone and
Yeah.
Klaviyo, ConvertKit. These massive conglomerate companies, Amazon and Facebook, they are just copycatting, and to me that doesn't make sense. How is this happening?
Yeah, I see that there has been some government's involvement in this. Like, I think they see that. Like, we've seen Zuckerberg testify in front of Congress and Google's CEO and stuff. Like, they're aware of what's going on. And I do think with a lot of this, I don't think we realize how early and new, like, all of this is.
Yeah.
Like, I know obviously social media have been around for a certain amount of years, but when you look at the grand scheme of just human history, this is like B1 in a lot of this, right?
Oh yeah.
We're working out the kinks of how social media should work, how we're going to interact with the internet, virtual currency, all this stuff. So like there's all these problems that are arising and we're discussing them, but again, it's like I feel like we're just working out the kinks of all this stuff, right?
Yeah. I think that you're right, 100%. What we're in is such an early version. I think we're like V1.2,
Yeah.
maybe.
Yeah.
And I think that V2
Yeah.
will be very blockchain heavy,
Yeah.
and that these NFTs and cryptocurrencies and these virtual worlds are going to all tie in. And the decentralization of the internet is, I think, the V2, where we don't have ISPs, we don't have Bell or Cogeco or Sprint or AT&T or whoever giving us access to the internet. We actually have the internet as a decentralized entity, kind of like a mesh wrapping around the world. That's how I see it, at least.
You know, one thing I want to say to people listening is that there's been times where I felt discouraged in the sense of like, it seems that internet business is becoming so saturated to a degree. Like everyone's doing Facebook ads, doing this, selling this way. When you actually look at the numbers of how many people in the world still don't actually have proper internet access,
Hmm.
right? Like imagine when, I don't know the exact number, but there's a very large amount, a percentage of like just the human population that still won't be able to access what you're selling at this
Right.
point, right?
Yeah.
So I'm saying in 20 years from now, the market is still growing, untouched market of people who haven't even accessed, that you couldn't even target through Facebook ads or whatever,
Yeah.
right? Like we are still the gold rush is still coming. I'll say that.
Yeah. And you see that in Africa. Africa doesn't have internet infrastructure like North America
What happens
does.
when that happens, right? Like,
and that's why Amazon and Facebook and Google, these huge companies are flooding to Africa, because they're saying, they're talking about what you're talking about.
okay, so I have the number now.
Okay.
So 59% of humans have access to the internet like that, are active users on the internet,
Yeah.
right? So that's 40%. So we got billions of people still that in 20 years from now are going to have access to whatever you want to do.
And also, like, population is growing.
Yeah.
So the amount of people that are going to be accessing the worldwide internet, what you're saying is we haven't even scratched halfway yet.
Yeah.
If you fluctuate based on the
Yeah.
growth of the population, we haven't even scratched halfway of the world.
Yeah.
And that's insane. That's insane.
So I say it more as an encouragement of like, all right, like no matter what's going on in your past year, maybe with COVID or whatever, you got to think long term about a lot of us who are online marketers doing things, business purely online, a lot of it,
Mhm.
that man, opportunities are going to keep coming over the next decade, 20 years. And you just got to be looking and ready.
100%. Absolutely. And I think too, with the way that the world is functioning, with these investments popping up, making people a lot of money is being put into the system. There's so much opportunity right now. Like if you feel, like Cayden said, if you feel left behind, like you're definitely not. No matter what, if you treat it right, if you look into the future, you're one of the early adapters, whether you like it or not.
The other little interesting thing is thinking about a lot of young millennials and maybe the Gen Z community who are getting into the workspace, the career world. And it used to be back in the day, you'd have one career, you'd have one job, and then you had your thing. And you would do that for 40 years or something, right?
Mhm.
But I look at even just myself now, I'm like, okay, in 5 years, I'm probably not going to be doing exactly what I'm doing now because even the platforms will be different. Like, I'm sure I won't be consulting people on how to be on Instagram or whatever. It could be a totally different platform. It's the change is incredible. So there is some anxiety around that in the sense of like, okay, what's going to happen in 5 years or 10 years? But it's also encouraging because it's like the possibilities are kind of endless, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. It's hard to, it's kind of scary being in that position too. 'Cause it's like, okay, what is the next
Yeah.
thing? What is the next thing that we do at Social Gravity that works
Yeah.
for our clients? What is the next move for us in the brand building stage? And I mean, that's why we're here. That's why we're doing this.
Yeah.
But I think we had a really solid conversation here.
Yeah.
I want to end it on that note.
Dope.
And really, what we're going to be doing is coming out with these weekly and dropping them. So if you haven't yet, subscribe to the Social Gravity channel or the podcast, depending on where you're listening. And Cayden, dude, thanks so much for joining me here.
Yeah. It's been awesome. Excited to keep doing more.
Yeah, let's get it. Again, my name is Vic. This was Social Gravity, and thank you for watching. Have a great day.